Hi, this is Kelly Hobart from Alpaca Direct, and I'm here on Technique Tuesday. And I am back with you, still working on my Rhoda sweater. I haven't done much on it in a little while, just because we had our family come into town and we had our granddaughters with us. And my daughter and son, we were taking extra time to visit with them and do special activities and what have you. It was really fun. We had a great time. So that's why we had the playback from last week. And you'll notice in that playback, you had a picture of Sydney when she was a puppy, our little mini Aussie. So if you would like for this next week, I could bring her back in to see what she looks like all grown up. She's getting to be such a big girl. She's very much a mommy's girl and so attached to me. She's like right on my heel everywhere I go. And I thought about bringing her today, but it is so cold outside and so snowy. I just wanted her to be safe and at home.
Six
So,
inches of snow, right?
yes, we had like 6 inches of snow last night, and there are a lot of roads that need to be plowed.
It's pretty.
So, but it is beautiful. And for all of you who are driving out in that snow, don't forget to drive slowly and creep right on up to those stop signs so you don't slide right on through.
Tell them what it's like to have a 2 and a 4-year-old.
Oh my goodness. I'm still trying to recover from having our 2-year-old and 4-year-old granddaughters with us. And that was, yes. And so we had lots of fun, and I'm still recovering. It is great fun to have the little ones, but they are a lot of work, and I forget how much work they are. So the minute they left, it's like, I'm going to bed. See you later. But anyway, today I was thinking, because I'm working on this sweater, I'm going to be picking up some stitches for the armholes around the neck and then binding off on the lower part of the sweater. I wanted to take a look and see what kind of bind offs I might like, and see if I can find something in here that I would like, and so that I can use it when I get to that section. And so I had fun doing these nice little samples. You can see them here. Can you see them, Jim?
Yep.
So those are the samples. And I was thinking that these samples are unblocked samples. And I just thought maybe we can take a look at each one so you can visually see them all side by side. And then you can see which ones you might like to try for your sweaters. And as I'm talking about each one of these bind offs, I'll tell you what I think that they're best for, and maybe some different little tricks that you can use to make them even better. Or you can just use your favorite bind off that you like to use, and I can show you how to either make it a stretchier bind off or a less stretchy bind off, depending on what you're looking for in your project. So let's, oh yes, Jim just reminded me that for the last week that I did, was it from the video that I did, right?
2 weeks ago, yeah.
From 2 weeks ago, we had the kabasi, regular kabasi, in this lovely kind of a pinky peachy, it has a little peachy color to it. And this was the winning color. And so for this week, Jim picked out these two lovely colors of vintage chunky, nice spring colors, kind of Eastery looking. And one is blue and the other is purple. So if you guys vote on which one you like the best, the winning person will get the yarn shipped out to them next week. And the way that you enter to win the lovely yarn is you post comments in the comment section. If there's a project that you're working on that you really like, let us know what it is and the name of the designer, etc., because we get ideas from you, and it gives us great knitting ideas for us in the future, right?
So tell them what you like about that yarn.
The vintage chunky, yes. I have used the vintage chunky many, many times, and it's kind of a workhorse yarn. And what I mean by that is it's a sturdy yarn that has lovely qualities about it. It's a non-itchy yarn. It's machine washable yarn. It just has a lot of great things about it. So here it is up close again so you can see. Really, really nice yarn. I like it. Barocco does a great job with this yarn, and it is at a price point that doesn't break the bank, which I like that too. I like when I'm knitting, I can afford to buy whatever yarn that I need and be able to get whatever amount that I need without worrying about the budget. Because it's a budget-friendly yarn, which is always nice. And it also feels good on your skin.
And there's a discount code for it.
Yes, and there's a discount code for that Barocco Vintage Chunky,
Oh,
and it doesn't show on here what
It's-
that code is, Jim.
sorry, TT
It's TT
2283.
2283, and that's for 10% off today only. Coupon for Vintage Chunky. And so take a look at that if you're interested in getting yarn.
And Madeline posted
That,
it too.
yeah, and Jim said that Madeline has posted a link for you if you would like to use that link. It'll be there for you. So let's take a look at these bind-offs and just see what they look like. And I'll stretch them a little bit and kind of show you the different qualities of each one. All right. I'm going to take one at a time, Jim, so we can examine it. So this first one right here is a bind off in pattern. So let's look at this lovely one. So you see the knit stitches all the way around, and it's not a super stretchy bind off. Matter of fact, this is the one bind off I believe that the cast on, which is long tail cast on, seems to stretch further and wider than the bind off.
What's it used for?
It's the normal traditional bind off that you would see. And by bind off in pattern, I mean knit 2 stitches, bind off 1, purl 1, bind off 1, etc. So you're binding off in what you see. You're knitting the knits and purling the purls.
And what do you use it for?
Yeah, a lot of people use it for all different kinds. Beginning knitters use that as their bind off for every single project that they do. That's the most common bind off, and that's the one that most people use. Okay, so the next one is Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off. And if you look at this, and mind you, when I knit these sample 2x2s, and I did it in the number 9 needle, and I bound off with the number 9 needle. Okay, so you can look at this Jenny stretchy bind off is very stretchy, much stretchier than the cast on, the long tail cast on. And you can see it's a very substantial bind off. Again, you see some knit stitches, and this is an unblocked sample. And you see that it is very substantial, meaning it's kind of a high bind off, and it looks very, very nice. The problem that some people have with this bind off, and this can be used for the top of mittens, fingerless mitts, yes, for the top of socks if you're doing toe-up socks, and around the neckline of a sweater, around the sleeves of your sweaters, etc. You do see the knit stitches. It looks quite lovely on the edges. The thing that some people don't like about this Jenny surprisingly stretchy bind off is that they feel like it flares for them. It flares a little bit. And you can see it is a little bit flared.
Maybe they can post comments on what they like on their project.
Yeah, that would be great. Jim said for you, if you can, to post in the link what kind of bind offs you enjoy. So what I do with this Jenny surprisingly stretchy bind off, I like to use this for the edges of baby sweaters, for the button bands on baby sweaters, and even on sweaters for myself. And what I usually do is drop down a needle size when I bind off, and it prevents the flaring, but still gives me plenty of stretch. So let's take a look at this next one. It's called the Easy Sewn Bind Off, and it's very easy to accomplish. You go use a darning needle to finish this one, and you can see it has kind of a it's similar to the cast on, not exactly similar. I kind of feel like it's tipped a little bit. Like tilted a little bit.
What's it called
out.
again?
It's called the Easy Sewn Bind Off, and it uses a tapestry needle. It's very, very simple to perform this bind off, and it looks pretty good. I think this bind off would look also very lovely when you're doing garter stitch. Yeah.
What kind of projects would you use it on?
So, on shawls where they have a bunch of garter stitch on the edges, it would be great for that, on the edge of shawls and things like that. And it is very simple to accomplish. And again, it is very stretchy. I mean, this is nice and stretchy, and much stretchier than the cast on, I believe. and it is a nice bind off. The only thing I don't like about it quite so much is it's not quite as structured. It doesn't have a beautiful finish to it like some other bind offs do. I would use it definitely on the edge with a garter stitch shawl, but maybe not for the edge of my sleeves on a sweater. I wouldn't use the easy sewn or around a neck. It might look a little bit sloppy. So this next one's called the Icelandic bind off, and it looks similar to the easy sewn bind off. And this one is really easy to accomplish as well. And if you are part of my knit club, I do use the Icelandic bind off fairly regularly. And what I like about it, it almost gives you an I-cord finish. And this is beautiful with garter stitch. It just melts right into garter stitch and makes your project look just gorgeous. So you could use it on the edge of your sweaters. I feel like it looks more refined than the easy sewn bind off. See the two? This one looks a little sloppier to me, and this one looks a little more refined. It has the purl bump showing, but it actually almost looks like an I-cord edge, but instead of on I-cord edges, you usually have the knit stitch showing. This is sort of like an I-cord edge, and it has the purl stitches showing. Don't you think? It looks nice. I like it. No, it's super easy. Yeah, it's basically knit stitches where you go into and you knit underneath the next stitch. The Icelandic bind off I find as almost as quick as doing a regular bind off. It's that easy.
Maybe Madeline, if she finds one, she can put a link maybe because she's done a
Yeah,
video on this.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
you can repeat that.
So that Icelandic bind off, and if you look at it, it's still pretty stretchy. I mean, it gives you plenty of stretch. It's stretchier than the cast on edge.
So maybe ask Madeline to post a link.
So Madeline, if you can post the link of this Icelandic bind off, that would be great. And then this last one is a tubular bind off, and it can also be called the Kitchener bind off, and you see the stitches roll over the edge. Now this one is, it's more for the more advanced knitter, I believe. It's not super easy to accomplish this bind off unless you practice it. What I would say with the tubular bind off is if you like that for your sweater, do a swatch like I've done here and practice it with several swatches before you actually try to do it on your sweater neck, because it's not quite as easy as you think, and it's hard to take out if you decide that you don't like it. Right? Or if you've done it a little bit sloppy and want to try to redo it, it's hard to take this bind off out, especially if you're doing it over hundreds of stitches. You could create yourself hours worth of work trying to take it apart and then redo it. So save yourself some grief and knit a sample and practice your tubular bind off before you use it on your actual project for the first time. But this makes a very nice finished look for your sweaters. If you look at my sweater here, see how the edge, this is a machine done alpaca sweater. See how the knit stitches roll over the top? This is the same bind off. It's very similar to a machine knit sweater. So if you want to take the time to learn how to do this, just create swatches and practice it until you get it perfect. And there are lots and lots of YouTube videos that you can just find one. Yes, and I'm sure that I have one for you too that Madeline can post. But the tubular bind off is beautiful, but it does require practice. So, and the tubular bind off you could use around your neck. You could use it on your sleeves. You could use it for the waistband on your the bottom of your sweater or what have you. It would be good for all of those things. So here I have a sample, and I just wanted to show you a couple of things here. Now, number one, I just have this on, I did not knit it with these needles, of course. I just moved it from when I was working on two samples at a time, I moved this off to the side so that I could do the tubular bind off on that one. But some things that you can think about when you're binding off. Here's my project and I'm ready to bind off. If you wanted to use your traditional standby bind off in pattern, you could take a needle size that is 1 to 2 sizes larger than the needle that you knit with, right? So this project, this was knit with number 9s. So I could take number 10s, which I have in my hand, and just bind off with a needle one size larger. And let's see what we get. So I knit 1 stitch. When you bind off in pattern, then you would purl the purl. This one is a 1x1 ribbing, by the way, not 2x2, because that tubular bind off was for 1x1 ribbing. So I just am going to knit another stitch and then bind off a stitch, and then knit another stitch in whatever it is, whether it's a knit or a purl. You just knit what you see. Okay. So that is what that would look like in a larger needle. So it will give you extra stretch, and you not trying to, some people say to cast on with a needle two needles held together or what have you. I'm just saying if you cast on and bind off with just a larger needle, whatever you have, whether it be one size or two sizes larger, then you can get a cast on that's a little bit roomier than it would be if it was cast on, or excuse me, bound off with the same size needle that you knit with. Or you could just try one of the other stretchy bind offs, whatever works for you. Also, if you're binding off on some sweater patterns, the patterns, you'll see the neckband is too large. And a couple of things, another thing that you might think about when you're trying to either increase or decrease the amount of stitches to get a tighter neckband. Say you're doing a sweater that has a loosey-goosey neckband, but you want to make yours tighter. You could, when you're picking up stitches, decrease a couple stitches when you're doing your bind off to make the bind off a little bit tighter, so your sweater doesn't fall off your shoulders. And by the same way, you can also use the same needle size and get a larger band just by increasing a couple stitches. Like if I was doing this ribbing right here, right before I'm going to bind off, I could increase a couple stitches here and there by doing a make one left or a knit front and back, whatever, and then do the bind off, because you're not going to notice it too much, and it would give you a better neckband. It's at least something to think about, and it's something that I've done many times with where I wanted to get a little more ease in the project, but I still wanted to use the same size needle. So those are two things that you can, little tools that you can use, as well as doing other bind offs. You could do exactly the same bind off and use a larger or smaller needle to get a tighter or looser neckband. So those are little tricks that I use all the time that make it so awesome. So I'll use like an Icelandic bind off, which is a little stretchier, and then I will just add a few stitches before I go ahead and complete that bind off. And it works great. And I've done that with I-cord bind offs too. You know how I-cord bind offs can sometimes be a bit tight? Well, if I'm doing a couple rows of stockinette stitch, then I can increase a few stitches. I usually like to increase no more than 10% of the amount of stitches before I do the I-cord bind off, and it works great. And that way you get an I-cord that is beautiful and relaxed and not tight at all. So it's just something to think about. So don't forget to vote on which yarn you would like to have the lucky winner get for this next week. And this is Vintage Chunky, which is,
purple or blue?
Yes, it's blue or purple. And we have, this yarn is an acrylic wool blend, and it's machine washable. And if you haven't tried this yarn by Barocco Yarn Company, it is wonderful. And we have that coupon code for today, so look for that link. Madeline will be posting it there, and then you can buy yourself some Vintage Chunky that is on sale for 10% off, only for today. So this next week, what I was thinking, I had a couple ideas. I was thinking about how we can tell how long our sweaters should be, how long the sleeves should be. And I'm going to give you a few little hacks on that for next week of how you might be able to make the perfect length of sleeves and the sweater itself so that you'll get as much wear out of that lovely sweater that you've spent a lot of time investing in making, and you want to make sure that it fits. So I'll just give you those hacks for next week. And I hope that you guys all have a great week and stay safe in the snow. Now let's spend one moment and see who the lucky winner of this Kabasi yarn. And this is by Cassell Yarn Company, and it's 55% cotton, 16% bamboo, 21% nylon, and 8% silk. So if you haven't used this Kabasi yarn, it is lovely, especially for winter, for summertime projects. And the lucky winner of this yarn is Linda Murphy. Congratulations, Linda. You won some lovely yarn. This is the colorway that you're going to be getting. All you have to do is contact us at customer service at alpacadirect.com, and we can get your shipping address and we can get this out in the mail to you. So I hope you all have a great week, and I will see you next Tuesday.